episode number 258, Camaro's Electric Future? Welcome to the Camaro Show.
A podcast about all things Camaro and GM performance news.
I'm Chris Frezza.
And I'm Jason Debler.
We're your hosts for this week's episode of the Camaro Show. Want to be part of our show? It's easy.
Just leave a message on our voicemail hotline at 586-486-3182.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And welcome back, everyone, for another exciting episode of the Camaro Show. I'm Chris.
I'm Helephant.
You're what?
I just think that's one of the coolest names for an engine. I just saw it on musclecarsandtrucks.com. The Helephant crate engine. The Helephant.
Speaking of muscle cars and trucks,
Yep.
With us on this episode is Manny
Greetings.
from Muscle Cars and Trucks. He's going to join us and talk about some news that came out this week and what's going on in the world of electric.
Yeah, specifically GM electric vehicles.
Yeah. But before we talk about that, Jason, everything okay down there in Nashville?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, I mean, no, it's not okay. It's a disaster in some areas. It's really, really bad. In fact, right now, as we speak, my wife is trying to help volunteer to clear some rubble in one of the hardest hit areas, which was Germantown, just north of downtown, about 15 miles south of me, as we see it. Yeah, it's pretty bad, but heck, it didn't even knock over our trash can or even flip the lid off it because it was waiting to be picked up for the next morning, and it was sitting at the end of our driveway. So we didn't get it as near as bad as other people. But my favorite place in the whole world to see a concert, the Basement East, half gone, and I got tickets for lots of shows that, that's the least of my worries about that. They'll relocate it somewhere, but it's just a landmark for me. And another place in Germantown, Jack Brown's Burger and Beer Joint, the best burgers I've ever had in Nashville. I guess that's gone too. I mean, it's really weird. You see the footage when it happens in another state, and you're like, wow, I'm so disconnected. It's not real. Mm-hmm. But then when you see it when it's miles from you, and you go, wow, I'm so connected, it doesn't seem real. So either way, it's just unreal. So I hope everybody in the listening area, if I don't know you personally, but you listen to the show and you were impacted by that, you have our thoughts.
I think one of the scariest things I saw was someone released a TikTok video. It was a guy, he was in a construction crane. Yeah. And he was watching the tornado come through downtown, and it was dark and it was ominous because it was like you'd see flashes of lightning, and then all of a sudden you'd see the tornado, and it's like, oh my God. Yeah,
and I guess it takes, 5 to 10 minutes to get down from there, and the tornado was 2 minutes away, so
woo!
I'd be nervous enough just being in one of those cranes on a nice day. So,
oof. Yeah. Well, I'm glad everything's okay, and I'm glad. I'm sure there will be rebuilding, and Nashville will be bigger and better than ever.
That is one thing that I do want to end this portion with, is that you don't see a whole lot of people sitting around and crying. It's like everybody just said, okay, well, it is what it is. Let's roll up our sleeves and rebuild, and it's just going berserk.
I mean, there's already tons of building already going. I mean, when I visited you last summer, you took me down. It was cranes everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're building like crazy there.
Yep, and it's all centered downtown, which the tornado just went just north of downtown. But they're having to turn away people to volunteer. They don't have any more room for volunteers.
That's good.
It's really good. It really shows how quickly people can pull together. Yeah. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, we've got some news to talk about this week. General Motors was doing some press conferences this week with electric vehicles, announcing, I don't know, they're doubling down on their electrification plans of the company.
Well, I wouldn't say they're doubling down, but you're starting to see their strategy kind of come into light. They did invite select members of the media, investors, analysts, and even policymakers to walk through the GM Design Dome and check out these future products. No photos were allowed, no cameras, no nothing. So everyone that got to go, you're just kind of you're hearing description all secondhand. What we understand is that there were the Hummers, right? They're an SUV and a truck.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're gonna not just have the electric Hummer pickup like originally,
right,
but both. 2 Cadillacs with actual names, which I think is cool. But they're dumb.
Was it the one that like the Lyric or something?
The Lyric.
The Lyric.
What?
Le Celestique. And I'm like, Celestic sounds like shampoo. I'm sorry. Yeah. But that car specifically, the Celestique, with a Q, is gonna be hand built in Warren, and it's gonna be a fully electric car. It's gonna be a flagship sedan, and for me, that, even though it's electric, kind of speaks to me more about the Cadillac ethos than a lot of products have in the past. So that's something for me to get excited about. I hope that they commit to hand building it in Michigan. Of course, it's gonna be like a 6-figure price tag, limited run, but I think that's cool. I think that's really gonna help, elevate the brand and put it, on a spot where people kind of always like wished it was gonna play in. They also had, I think, a Bolt SUV,
right?
A refreshed Chevy Bolt, and I think that's pretty much it. And then they released, their videos, their press releases and everything, just kind of talking loosely about, the battery technology called Altium, which also shares the name of Purina horse feed. Never mind all that.
Oh God.
It's pretty capable, pretty powerful. Briefly here, 50 to 200 kilowatt hours, up to 400 miles of range. And the 200 kilowatt hour stuff, like I assume that's going into like full size trucks and SUVs, primarily because you need that much battery just to get those big boys moving, right? And if you think they're heavy now, they're going to be extra heavy with the battery packs.
No kidding.
But
flat pig.
Yeah, big boys. But overall, like everything is very modular, right? They are kind of able to take this electrical skateboard. You guys remember the skateboard platform?
Oh yeah,
stuff.
with the Volt.
Sure.
Yeah, well, back when the Volt was a concept car, and even I think predating that, like this whole idea of like to be able to have battery packs or fuel cells and individual electric motors powering each wheel, and then just being in different bodies, you can configure it like that. It's always been, or it's been for almost 20 years, like an idea that this company has had, and now it's finally the technology seems to be finally catching up with the imagination, and for a lot of applications, I think it's cool. But the most curious thing was in this video that they released, where it kind of showed silhouettes of all the different vehicles that the skateboard can support. There was a very suspiciously Camaro-looking thing.
Very familiar-looking body.
A very familiar-looking body, very close to what we see with the Gen 6. And I think it's left a lot of people kind of stumped. Me personally, as the guy who said that the 7th generation Camaro was shelved, right? That it's not going to transition to the Alpha 2 platform like the Cadillacs did. And just, to my knowledge, that after 2023, its life cycle is essentially running out. So that kind of just has everyone being like, well, what happened? What's going on?
Yeah.
Is there going to be a 7th gen Camaro? And if so, like, is it just going to be electric? Quite frankly, I don't know. But that said, like the BEV 3. So I want to just kind of make it clear that, it doesn't, as I've said before, it doesn't mean that plans weren't going to change or did change, but just that program as we knew it,
was going to be a
7th gen got put away.
Yeah.
And now if they're going to go with this as a possible Camaro, I mean, I think that this is probably the riskiest approach that they could take this car, especially if they're looking to increase in sales, because I don't think that you're going to attract a different customer. ultimately, right? So if you're going to attract a different customer, why are you trying to leverage an old name?
Right. Well, first off, yeah, if they do this with a Camaro, and me and Jason have talked about this many times, you're going to split the people who love the Camaro. You're going to have them like, there is no way you can make an electric Camaro. No way. And you're going to piss off so many people.
Right. Like if they think sales are bad now, like this can't be a solution. What I do, here's the thing though. They seem to want to hedge the bet when it comes to the trucks and SUVs, right? Like they're coming out with electric trucks,
right.
They're coming out with electric SUVs. They're still going to offer gasoline and diesel solutions for customers that want them. Not only because they're far more practical for a lot of people, but they will be more affordable. And on the other end of the town, Ford, they're doing a similar strategy with the F-150. They're going to have a gas, they're going to have an electric F-150. They are talking about an electric Mustang as well as offering, a gasoline solution. And you kind of need, again, this is all, I think, the automaker's strategy to align themselves best with customer demands, kind of the best that they think they can, while also trying to appease all these regulations that they constantly have to jump around. So, for example, Mustang Mach-E, right? Like that's an electric crossover. It's called the Mustang.
Right.
What if they blended the Mach-E with the Mustang coupe in the sales chart? Mustang, right? And suddenly,
no. So now you got all these extra.
You have all the token points.
Kind of like the Ford F-150 truck.
In what way?
Well, you say the Ford F-150, but it could be.
Oh, it could be like with an electric F-150. Yeah. So in a way, like it's kind of the regulations have forced automakers into doing electrification, but this ultimately might be able to save your gas, your V8s, your push rod, the stuff that we all love, and that is also very approachable. Versus, if your electric muscle car breaks down, what do you do?
Well, me and Jason have talked about this before. The gearheads of tomorrow are the volt heads, right?
Yep.
In a way, yeah.
They're the electric engineers.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah and no, but it's still like it's application, based. Like you can't run an endurance race with a BEV. You can't. There's weight limitations. There's power density limitations and all sorts of stuff that make gas vehicles a more optimal solution versus a BEV. I'm not against BEVs. Like as a guy who's had 2 Chevy Volts now, and like I'm not anti-electric car. It's just if that's the only solution, you're kind of you need a lot. It'd be like only having a flathead screwdriver in your tool shed when you need a Phillips as well.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you need both, right? You need both for different tools for different applications. So anyway,
I look at this with 2 questions, 2 big questions. I would love to ask Mary Barr if I talked to her. I would say, up to this point, an electric vehicle always seems to be a rich man's car. Look at Tesla.
Yeah, I mean or the Taycan, right?
Right. What is the affordability? How is the average Joe going to afford an electric vehicle? And number 2, Tesla is so far advanced in their supercharger network. What is GM going to do to build an infrastructure and a network to be able to support all of these electric vehicles? I mean, are they going to leave it up to the Joe Blow to go install their own 220 charger on their garage like I did?
No.
Or is there going to be, like, have you seen the Myers around here? They got superchargers at the Myers now.
Yeah, I know. Well, then there's so the Tesla is kind of able to move a little faster because
they're a tech company, not an automotive company.
No, I think it's also like, first of all, that their stuff is not as well vetted as a legacy. I'll call quote unquote legacy automakers as Californians like to call it, but at the same time, like the industry has standards for charging. Kind of like how Androids just use, like, they don't overcomplicate it. They're very universal ways to charge it. Whereas like Apple, it's like you have
standards.
You have it's its own. It's in an own island. It's its own ecosystem. Yep. So like you can't use a supercharger on any electric vehicle outside of a Tesla, and there are reasons for that, right? And a lot of automakers just kind of like look at this stuff and they're just like, this actually messes with the batteries. Like it really stresses them out. Like that fast charging stuff really hurts the long enough timeline. Yeah, it accelerates the life cycle of the batteries. At the same time, with SAE standards, you kind of get the whole industry involved, and you try to figure out the best solution. And with any electric vehicle that has an SAE charging standard, like my Nissan Leaf, my Chevy Volt, my Porsche Taycan, like it all will work with the same plugs. Yeah. There's trade-offs, right? That's obviously moving a lot slower than what Tesla's done with the supercharger network. But again, like ultimately a arguably more trustworthy solution.
Yeah.
They did make an announcement recently that they're I don't want to pull this because this will take too much time, but they're working on it. They're working on charging networks, and as is the rest of the industry. Yeah.
It's almost like I'm thinking of it as a tech guy, as a open source versus a closed source solution. You know, you have open source, Tesla. There's like everybody here, you can use our technology, but this is what we're going to build.
It's the opposite, though.
Really?
Because as far as the application, it's closed because.
Well, their charging network is closed.
Yeah, their
technology is open source.
Yeah, and then no one's necessarily using. I don't know why they even were just like, they opened the patents up, right?
Right.
It's like if everyone wants to use them, but like no one's using them. Why? And I don't think it's generally because of industry stubbornness. I really think that there's maybe something else at play here. It's just like, why can't we use the patents? Are they actually not as good? I mean, because quite frankly, like the evangelism of Tesla is probably the worst thing about it. Like it's just for me, like it's eye rolling. I think they've come up with some cool stuff. They've disrupted the industry, but at the same time, like a lot of this stuff is like just minimum viable. And I don't trust a semi-autonomous system that's called autopilot, which really is not
autopilot.
It's not autopilot. It's also just largely camera based, whereas like a Cadillac Super Cruise system is far more ironed out, and it's getting better. Like the Super Cruise system is like probably the best semi-autonomous.
Is it the one that uses lidar?
Radar, lidar. Yeah. So and it was only on like the CT6, but like they're rolling it out, I think, on like 8 different vehicles. Yeah. Even like that Chevy Bolt electric crossover is going to get it, which is going to be the first non-Cadillac, I think, or it's either going to be the first non-Cadillac. It's the first non-Cadillac announced, but I bet you the pickup trucks get it before that even comes out. Like the high-end ones, those will get Super Cruise, because the Escalade is going to get it. So if the T1 platform, the GM-T1 platform is getting Super Cruise, then you can just only assume and make a very educated guess that the rest of the stuff is capable of the semi-autonomous tech on that platform.
So Jason, if General Motors came out with a vehicle that was it was a pure electric vehicle, sort of like a Tesla, affordable, would you be someone who would be in the market for one?
Probably.
Would you look at it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd consider it for sure. Yeah. I think I would. Well, it's easy to say because I'm not standing there ready to write a check. Right. It's always the thing. Everybody wants this until it's time to find their wallet.
Right.
And then it's like, it's not.
And then with the weather considerations here in Michigan.
Yep.
Potholes.
Yep.
Which have gotten a lot better.
It's also like, I mean, people are, if they're planning on holding on to their EVs for a long time, and then maybe on the flip side, or even like after, maybe they want to just hold on to it after a lease, and they just see it's like, what do you mean my value plunged 60%
or more
or more? It's the values of EVs are they don't hold. There's a lot of risk and at the same time caution to buying a used EV, and mostly it just comes down to like, how do I fix it, and And generally, like if something, because if with these like new skateboard platforms specifically, like the parts are minimal compared to a gas. Like the packaging is very it's cool, but if your battery cells suddenly, long enough timeline run out, like that's a huge fix. And I'm a little, so my skepticism is kind of baked in with this stuff, is even though I think that EVs are a decent solution for some applications, that it's actually going to accelerate consumption, and that these are just going to be like the same way that we use phones, where it's just gonna, like, you're going to keep them for 2 years, throw them away, and then like they're going to be
pick
useless.
up another one.
And right, and at the same time,
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine right now buying, say, like, what's 5-6 years, like an iPhone 5 or 6, going out and buying a used iPhone 6, and how would using that feel like right now, having
slow,
it'd be terrible. Well, you know, 6 years of, like, whatever, several years of wear and tear from other users, and like ultimately, like, this technology piece is not as cutting edge as it once was, and there's little you can do about it, right? So just some things to consider regarding a full electric vehicle strategy. But before we get too far down that, I want to kind of go back to the Camaro. We don't, as far as I can see it, there's no gasoline version of a 7th generation Camaro currently, like on the radar, versus where like Ford seems to be doing both. And I don't want to think, and this is GM, they've done blunt, even recently, like the CT6 is like, what happened, guys? Like, you made this new engine, you had this new platform, and it was just on this one car in very limited numbers. And how much money did you spend on this? Like, what happens? Just an overall blunder. So I really hope that they don't think that they can just have an electric Camaro and call it and call it a day. You have to hedge the bet.
I think that if they've listened to the community, and if they would ever do something like that, I hope they would, like, maybe bring the Disciples back again or something. Maybe wouldn't that be a good idea?
I think they'd have to get a different generation of Disciples.
Yeah, but still,
I don't know. I think honestly, like, you go to the, like, you, Chris, you're Jason. You were just at like a Cars and Coffee this morning, and like,
yep,
that crowd varies and it's very diverse. Right, it's not just a bunch of boomers with beer koozies walking around. It's not that. It's not that. It's everybody, and like, people, they still.
It was.
Stop it. If you go to a car meet, like, it's different. There's young people, there's old people, all different mixes of backgrounds and stuff like that. And like, I really don't want to sit there and be like, oh, well, we need a younger group. It's like, don't pigeonhole us millennials, okay? I promise you that we have a lot of thought diversity, despite what you see and read on the internet. And again, not against an electric performance car, not against electric enthusiast community, not against any of that at all.
I think it's exciting.
I think it's very interesting. More than anything, I find it to be a curiosity. I'm not excited.
I am.
I'm not excited. I can't find myself to be excited. Because it would be like, at the end of the day, like a steakhouse, like specifically an electric Camaro. You take a legendary, like a Peter Luger in New York, right? Like, legendary name, reputation, you know what it's about. Steaks, kind of like a fairly casual atmosphere. But like, you go there for the meat. Suddenly Peter Luger is going to start just serving you like soy substitute.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like, and openly trying to say like, no, this is meat, guys. We swear, like, we're Peter Luger. We know what we're about. This is still good. It's a protein. It's going to give you everything that you need, like, that's in a meat, but it's just not meat anymore. And right there, when you put it like that, right, you start to be like, maybe that's not a good idea. Because that's what's ultimately going to happen, is like, they're going to if it's an electric Camaro and only electric Camaro, be like, look, it's a Camaro, guys. And you're like, I don't think really that's a Camaro. But if they were to do something like, again, a low roof electric coupe on the BEV3 architecture, think of a different name.
I think that's what they would.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what would happen.
Yeah. I mean, and there's stuff that you can even like maybe dust off. That's, I mean, I've heard people talk about like Monza would be a decent name. Something like that. Monza. Okay, fine. But something else, maybe just something completely
How about
new. I think, honestly, call it the Volt. Real talk. Because the concept, right, was like
was badass.
It was badass. It was rear wheel drive. It had very sports car proportions.
Yeah.
Almost Camaro like high belt lines and things like that. Very very broad shouldered car. Why not?
There's a lot of different names that could be brought back.
I think Volt would be really appropriate. Yeah, you got to deal with the whole like Bolt versus Volt thing.
Yeah. Just don't bring back the Citation.
Oh boy. I mean, at first, Chris, you and I, when we talked about it, the idea of electric anything, it was just like, I'm not feeling it, just it's not there. And then as time goes on, we start to be assimilated to the idea. And next thing you know, we're excited about it.
Well, here's the thing. I've had a Volt before. I had a Volt lease for 3 years. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I loved to go. Yeah, I put it in my backyard. I plug it in every night. I didn't bat. There was a point I went almost 8 months without putting any gas in the car.
That's awesome.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I've driven Teslas. I've driven a Model S. I've driven a Model 3. I love that instant torque feeling of just. Ugh.
Yeah. But what else? Is it the full package, really, truly?
For an electric vehicle?
But is it suddenly just like, oh, well, we're just going back to the straight line thing again, guys? The 0 to 60. And sure, take it to the drag strip. You're a Tesla in ludicrous mode or whatever, any electric car, you can do only so many runs before it's got to like park itself.
Oh yeah.
You can run and run and run and run and run and run and run. Your demon, your junkyard LS, beater truck, whatever. There's again and far more cost effective to operate should something actually fail, and should a part fail. Still expensive, right? Like if you blow your engine, it's still expensive.
Right.
But compared to blowing a battery pack, less so.
Yeah.
I think we said this before, Chris, a few years ago when we started talking about this. Let's just say that they come out with an electric Camaro. And let's just say that the price point, we're living in a fantasy world on this one. The price point is the same as what a mid package Camaro SS is. And it has ZL1 performance. And they only made one. That's it. If you want a Camaro, it's that price, that performance, and it's 100% electric.
Just straight line performance, like one time, measure it once.
No, let's just say ZL1 performance, both straight line and road course, Camaro SS price, 100% electric.
I don't know.
I mean, where's the hang up? Is it the fact that it's electric? The fact that...
Well, I think it's going to be, it'll be definitely a lot heavier, won't it? Because of the battery packs.
It will be
But
heavier.
if the performance is still there.
But so the car will be.
It's just hypothetical.
But. Yeah. So say it's called the Camaro EL1.
Sure.
Oh God.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's something that's. Is it another Camaro in the line? Is it another?
Nope. This is the only one available.
It's the only one available. It's a Camaro EL1.
Yep. And it's current Camaro SS price, current ZL1 performance, 100% electric, and it's the only Camaro you can get on the market. Brand new.
I don't think GM would ever do something like that.
I think.
I know, and that's why this is totally hypothetical. But
I think.
What if? Would that be good or would that be bad?
I think the sales would be worse than they are now.
Why?
I don't see a lot of bites.
Why?
Because it's electric.
It's not because no one goes to Peter Luger and orders the soy steak.
But what if that soy steak, was just as good, if not better, than any non-soy steak?
Oh, come on. We both had the Impossible Whopper. That's not true.
Yeah, right. You're just pretending. You're not. No. It's not really though. It's not really though.
You can't compare cars to food.
Yes, I can. So,
well, you can, but it won't make sense.
What's making sense, I think. So like, there's a lot of stuff that maybe the spec sheet, right, doesn't tell. Because like right now, like it's to do something like that, right? It sounds very algorithmic, and you will see this thing on the paper. Like or you'll see it on the spreadsheet, you'll see it on the performance numbers, and then all the magazines will be like, "Whoa, look at this!" And they'll again, like they did this with Corvette. It's like, "Oh, look, 2.9 seconds, 0 to 60. We're so fast." But actually, in a road course, we might be slower than the C7 guys. Never mind. So the trade-off is, while you could have those specs, ZL1 specs and an SS package, hypothetically an SS price, I don't see that actually being the case. Can you run it? Can you cycle it through? Like if I take it to autocross or a track day, or if I just want to cruise all evening, like how long until I have to park it, or what's my maintenance going to be like? If I were to take a Camaro SS, say an SS1LE, and this ZL1 performance equivalent that's electric, and run them, like at the end of the day, which one is going to have more laps, which one's going to have more runs, which one's going to have like all these less issues than the other? It's stuff like that. I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in the eyes of the customer best I can.
I'm trying to put my mind where Jason's talking about too, because I would say 80% of Camaro buyers are buying the cars to shine them up, put them in their garage, and never drive them.
Well, yeah, they're garage queens, and look.
So it's not going to matter how often they can cycle through.
Well, it's also like, again, it's the drama of the engine. It's the V8. It's the roar.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff that you feel and that you hear, versus like, it's kind of like that scene in The Matrix where he's eating the steak. He knows it's not real, but the Matrix is telling him that the steak is juicy and that it's, that it's rich. And it's like, you're going to power up this car, and the car's going to be like, we are like, this is what fun is. This like, and I'm being very like cynical here, but you're not going to have the sound. You just aren't. And any sound that you're going to have with it is going to be
artificial.
Is artificial. And it's like, do we really want that lack of authenticity? Do we because ultimately that's what you're getting with the EVs, is like it's right now it's in this weird phase where it's like it's trying to a lot of EVs are trying to pretend to be something that they aren't, which is they're trying to be gas cars in some ways, where it's like, no, you're different. You're different. You're not the same. You're for a different customer. You're for a different use. You're different than a gas. Most, like, especially when it comes to like the performance cars. And you kind of see it like magnify when you look at, say, like Nürburgring lap times or things like that, where, the fastest cars right now are not the hybrid. Like, it's not the LaFerrari, it's not a 918, it's not the McLaren. Like, they're all like relatively lightweight, balls to the wall, fire breathers. And you can still see that, like, in that space, like, ICE still has the edge. ICE also still has the edge in just being able to fix what is breaking, because it's not just your charging infrastructure, it's your maintenance infrastructure. It's a lot of that.
I think marketing into this car would be
a nightmare.
A nightmare. Can you imagine who are you going to market to?
Right.
You're going to market to someone who doesn't exist right now.
Well, again, so I've said this before, not on this podcast, but I look at the sales of EVs, and you look at vehicles. So, for example, you had, well, I'll touch on this in a second, but they're starting to become like in more volume-oriented, approachable segments, like crossovers and stuff that's like fairly hot right now and doesn't really show any signs of slowing down. This is a segment. But, at the end of the day, like, sales aren't really they're not budging anything more than like 1.5%, 2% of the market. And a lot of them are Teslas. And I personally think that these customers are, you included, are not necessarily ones that want electric cars. They just want Teslas. They want this completely clean slate brand from a completely clean slate company, versus something that is coming from a company that's 100 years old,
has a legacy, has
a name that implies something completely different. And it's just when you start to like mix and manipulate again, like it's in another way. I'm going to go to like food. It's like there are some chefs, right, that will take a tomato and they'll make it look like a strawberry. So when you eat it, you think that you're going to taste strawberry, but you don't. It's tomato. And it's that weird manipulation of what something is what it naturally is to be something else. Where it's just like, well, why didn't you just give me the tomato? Why can't I just have my strawberry? These are different things.
Oh, boy.
These are different things.
So much to think about. My head hurts right now. I just want to see a lineup, and I want to drive them, right? And the closest to my personality is what I would pick.
Yeah, then that's fine. You should be allowed to have the choice.
Yeah.
But you should be allowed to have the choice. Again, like it can't be just
here it is. This is all you're going to get.
Yeah, this is your EV, guys. Hope you're happy. And by the way, it's a Camaro. It's
how long is that sustainable for a business being an automaker though, to have two different things? It's there was a theory that there was going to be two Corvettes simultaneously, one the rear engine, one the front engine, or mid engine I should say. Sorry, I'm actually looking at pictures of Don Gartlett's while we're talking about it. In his rear engine dragster. That's why I started to say that. There's a reason why I'm looking at Don Gartlett's. I'll get to that in a second. There was a rumor that they were going to run two different Corvettes at the same time, front engine and mid engine. And I'm like, that just doesn't make sense. That's not sustainable. And I think that, there's going to be a blending period, but I'm not going to be surprised if that in a few years, it's going to be very, very few cars are combustion engine.
With regard to the Corvette thing, I thought that strategy was good, because why kill a good thing? The tooling's like for the C7, tooling's paid for, everything's paid. Like if look at Charger and Challenger, like people still want to ride the dinosaurs, let them. It's fine. If you want, there's other people that are looking for something new and fresh, let them. It's fine. You're gonna essentially you're hedging the market rather than moving the goalpost. And I think again, like if you gave customers a choice in a completely different segment, say like, or no, we'll stick to this, where it was cheaper, right, and you still got a lot of performance. Like if someone brought if they brought the F body, they won't, but like if someone brought the F body back and you're just like, well, this thing's what, $20,000 gives me a V8 and I can run 13s, like, hell yeah, sign me up. Like this is kind of all I want. And that's why Challenger and Charger do so well. And you look at who's buying them, you talk to these people, and they're pulling in, it's all in Jeeps too. It's this market that isn't necessarily looking for like the new stuff. They're looking for an ethos. They're looking for like this Americana. And the Wrangler, the Wrangler customer, you know what their second car is?
Mm-mm.
It's a Mustang.
What?
Right. It's but when you think about it, when you really go like say like 30,000 feet up, it's like, can you see that? Can you see like this is Americana? Like you can really only see these things like these are iconically American cars, both of them. And I think that's what the customer is kind of like looking for in a way, is that they're looking for this Americana ethos. The Charger and Challenger, Charger specifically, they're pulling from all areas. They're pulling from F-150 is actually a huge conquest, as well as Camaro and Mustang, because families, right? They're suddenly you've got a full size sedan. You still get the Hemi. You can still get the Hellcat. It's balls to the wall, and that whole segment is dying, except for that. And you have to kind of stop and give credit where credit is due. Where FCA's been selling dinosaurs, but it turns out that people actually just
because people keep buying them.
People want them. People want dinosaurs.
I always wondered if they didn't change over to the 6th gen in the Camaro with the 5th gen. So, in 2016, and they kept making Gen 5. Would the customers still have bought the car? Because Gen 5 was huge, man. And, I know the pent-up demand. I know Transformers and all that.
Pent-up demand, but even towards the end of the life cycle, it was still doing good. It was, better than Camaro 6. Yeah. And, I think that part of it had to do with just the intangibles, the non-algorithmic stuff, where you're sitting in this, it's big, it's burly, it's heavy, and, the only car that kind of in that segment does that like the Camaro 5 did is Challenger. And Camaro 6 is more of is the sports car thing, and I don't think that the market base was looking for a sports car. And it's if you wanted to attract a sports car customer, why aren't they coming? Probably because they don't want a Camaro.
That's a good point right there.
And again, if there's an EV customer looking for an electric performance car, you really think that they're going to suddenly bite on a Camaro? I don't think so. There's too much variables here at play, and a lot of it it's hard. It's really hard to narrow down through a PowerPoint presentation.
I know, and we've been talking about it for years. Every aspect around the 6th gen Camaro, I think we've already hit on it.
Yeah.
Yep. True.
But
we're getting tight on time here, guys.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting point here. Before we go, I do want to wrap up, close a loop on something. Why was I looking at Don Garlits? Because I was actually at Cars and Coffee earlier today, as you mentioned, and we were talking about, and somebody brought up Don Garlits, and I didn't even know this. Don Garlits is my first, drag racing hero when I was just a little kid. I was 4 years old, Big Daddy, Last year, and this went under my radar. Last year, Garlits at 89 years old, I think he is 88, something like that. Went 200. Almost, he's trying to break another record, 200 mile per hour with an electric dragster.
Nice.
Don Garlits was a huge innovator in drag racing. He was the first one to break 200 miles per hour. Period. I believe that one of his accidents was the prompt for him to start making rear engine dragsters instead of having the engine right in front because of a really bad accident that he had where, well, I won't get into it. You can see all sorts of footage of it where he just snapped the dragster right in half and spent a lot of time in the hospital. Always an innovator, and here he is, 89 years old, still innovating, trying to hit that 200 mile per hour with an electric Camaro, electric dragster.
Nice.
And it's pretty neat to see. There's a future in it. I think the big question that we're all circling around, the big question mark standing there in the middle of the room that we're all walking around looking at very closely is how much of the future is electric. And Chris, we've had many episodes with a title similar to that. Is the future of Camaro electric? Is there an electric Camaro in the future? We've said it a million times, and that's the big question that we all want to know. How much of the future is electric?
Right.
It's going to happen. We might as well just say it's going to happen. Just like a lot of things that we don't think is gonna. It's gonna.
But why? Why?
Because it's cool. Why not? I don't know.
Because it's the evolution.
Is it?
Don't know.
That's
why there's a question mark.
Because we may not have a choice. Because maybe this is the offerings that they want to give us.
Don't say that.
I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
If it wasn't a moneymaker for the automakers, they wouldn't even be dreaming of mentioning it now. But there's obviously some profit in it. There's also some governmental regulations that need to follow. So blame your politicians if you don't like that.
If we're not, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that the industry as a whole is rolling over to this as much as they are because it upends so much, and it's a big, they'll call it opportunity, but in reality, it's a massive risk. And I'm just, again, like, I'm not sure if the demand is actually there. I'm worried that instead, because things are going to get more, we're not going to go backwards on prices. Stuff's going to get more expensive. Yeah. And it's going to get more complicated, and your bandwidth for being able to like tune and tinker on products is going to narrow and narrow, especially with EVs. Because when you go full EV and everything becomes software based, that circle is completely closed.
Yep,
it sure is.
So you have to stop and think if that's really the future that you want to sign up for.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think it's something I don't think it matters if we as consumers want it or not. It may come to a point where it's just that's just the offerings and that's it.
Right. I guess, okay, going back, like,
for their profitability.
There should be pushback. I don't know. Again, like, profitability can only come from sale. Right? You can make because the math, right? It's just like, oh, we can make X amount of dollars on every product so long as provided we can sell 50,000 of them a year.
Right.
And that's all stuff that's all math that I'm just, it's fascinating and really complicated. Right, like the Corvette. Allegedly, they won't make money on any Corvette that isn't sold for under $80,000. But who's really buying a base Corvette?
Right. All right, dude. You want to do a shout out, Jason? I see in the notes here you want to give a shout out.
Just a quick shout out to my new buddy Kevin, who lives in my neighborhood. He's got a killer 6th Gen ZL1 that he drives daily. That's his only car that he's actually no. He has a 98 Firehawk sitting next to that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
But he doesn't drive that much. But he drives his ZL1, a 6th Gen ZL1, every day. Snow, rain, you name it. He's a listener of the show. In fact, he sent me a text message saying he listened to our best of that was just recently released and thought it was pretty cool when the 2016 Camaro came out. So quick shout out to you, Kevin.
Nice.
In fact, that's why I got to go, because he's coming over for beers.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us again, Manny, and putting in perspective some of this electric stuff too.
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I love kind of approaching this with different angles that maybe you're not necessarily reading about. Right. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as always, buddy. And don't forget to one day tell me why you wouldn't want that electric Camaro that has ZL1 performance at a Camaro SS price. Just why? Just why? That's all.
All right, guys. We will see you next week. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Camaro Show.
Don't forget, drop us a voicemail at 586-486-3182.
We'll see you next week. See ya.